All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, we did not do our live debate coverage on Friday night, but I know you all enjoyed watching CNN and MSNBC declare Amy Klobuchar to be the winner again for the 9th straight time. New York Times is out with yet another article about Amy's Klobumentum, insisting that she is now Klobucharged. I'm serious, they actually used that word. She's in a strong 5th, guys. Meanwhile, back here in reality, it was a tough night for Pete, a brutal night for Biden, and a very strong night for Bernie Sanders, who I dare say looked downright presidential.
Candidates, welcome. Vice President Biden, the first question is for you. In the last few days, you've been saying that Democrats will be taking too big a risk if they nominate Senator Sanders or Mayor Buttigieg. But they came out on top in Iowa. What risk did the Iowa Democrats miss?
Oh, they didn't miss anything. This is a long race. I took a hit in Iowa, and I'll probably take a hit here. Traditionally, Bernie won by 20 points last time.
Pete, fundamentally, you are missing the lesson of Donald Trump's victory. Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems, and we're making a mistake when we act like he is.
That's right.
When our nominee is dividing people with a politics that says if you don't go all the way to the edge, it doesn't count. A politics that says it's my way or the highway.
Are you talking about Senator Sanders?
Yes.
The way you bring people together is by presenting an agenda that works for the working people of this country, not for the billionaire class. The way you bring people together, Republicans, independents, Democrats, progressives, conservatives, you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Now, Bernie has some pretty good reason to be feeling confident. His most serious rival, Joe Biden, looks to have utterly collapsed. In addition to basically admitting that he's going to get shellacked in New Hampshire, he's not exactly having the greatest time ever on the campaign trail. Reporters noted his lackluster showing at the same event where Pete was booed and called Wall Street Pete. Sagar's going to talk about that one. And then there was this. Here's Biden calling a young woman, and I'm not making this up, a lying, dog-faced pony soldier.
It's a good question. Number one, Iowa's a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying, dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
So things aren't really looking too great for Biden right now, and he's honestly the only candidate outside of Bernie with any demonstrated ability to win over working class and minority voters. Could Bernie be stopped? Of course. But it's not at all clear who's actually up for it right now. Sure, Pete is surging in New Hampshire and could even pull off the upset potentially. But he's yet to show any ability to win once the contest moved beyond the overwhelmingly white states of Iowa and New Hampshire. Warren is looking just about as down and out as Biden after only managing to win a single county in Iowa. A new CNN poll also has her in 4th in New Hampshire, a state that should be among her strongest. Yes, Democratic elites are fantasizing about Bloomberg, but at this point, honestly, his most important purpose seems to be to keep those elites from freaking out about Bernie's ascendance in the way that they probably should be. Tom Steyer, he will be a factor in Nevada and also in South Carolina, but he doesn't seem to have any juice beyond that. He does seem like a nice guy, though. Now, there's a new data point that may be the most significant of them all. As you know, we spent a lot of time studying the polls here, and in every single one, there has been a consistent dynamic. While Bernie leads the field on who voters trust most with their top 2 issues, healthcare and climate, he's always trailed Biden on who they thought was most likely to beat Trump. Didn't matter what state was polled, it was always this same result. Bernie was better on the issues, Biden was more electable. Every single poll, every single time, until this weekend. In CNN's New Hampshire tracking polls, for the first time this cycle, voters selected Bernie Sanders as the candidate most likely to beat Donald Trump. And that margin seems to only be growing. So take a look at this. CNN put out one tracking poll that included surveys on February 4th through 7th and a second that included surveys on February 5th through 8th. And even in that short time span, Sanders gained significantly on electability. The first tracker has him besting Biden on that metric by 4 points. The second tracker has him widening his lead to 6 points. Remember, these trackers were only 1 day different from each other, so that is a lot of movement in 1 day. Now, it's hard to overstate how significant a development this is. It's always been an uphill battle to convince voters who've been taught through decades of propaganda that even the word socialism is toxic. We've been fed years upon years of lies through probably millions of cable news panels that the correct way to win as a Democrat is to hug the center center to try to win over those suburban independents and moderate Republicans. That we should never really admit what we actually want in economics, like, for example, health care for all, a living wage, and livable environment because Mondale. This is the ethos that Chris Matthews is frantically trying to hold on to with increasing hysterics over on MSNBC.
I believe if Castro and the Reds had won the Cold War, there would have been executions in Central Park, and I might have been one of the ones getting executed. And certain other people would be there cheering, okay? So I have a problem with people who took the other side. I don't know who Bernie supports over these years. I don't know what he means by social. 1 week it's Denmark. We're going to be like Denmark. Okay, that's harmless. That's basically a capitalist country with a lot of good social welfare programs. Denmark is harmless.
He's pretty clearly in the Denmark category, yeah.
Are you sure? How do you know? Did he tell you that?
Oh, my God. And see, this is honestly what these people have been telling the public for years and years, that if you believe in single-payer health care, you're basically a communist ready to execute the wealthy in Central Park. It also, though, shows you just how little anyone actually listens to elite media anymore. I mean, think about this. Bernie's new surge in electability coincides with a time when attacks on him as an electoral disaster have reached fever pitch. In addition to whatever Chris Matthews was saying there, David Frum just laid out his case in a lengthy piece titled "Bernie Can't Win." Russia conspiracy theorist Jonathan Chait had his own piece titled "Running Bernie Sanders Against Trump Would Be an Act of Insanity." Of course, Chait's previous hits have included urging Democrats to support Trump for the nomination because he'd be so easy to beat, and various Iraq war cheerleading. So, you know, he's got a great track record there. My heart is absolutely broken that he recently called me nutty. There's been endless hand-wringing reported about elite Dems trying to figure out what to do about unelectable Bernie, and debate questions posed about whether Democrats can possibly win with the Democratic Socialists at the top of the ticket. And yet, in spite of all of that overwhelming bluster and panic from elite media trying to force voters back into their thought pens, where they unthinkingly accept whatever conventional wisdom nonsense the Grand Washington poobahs put out, in spite of, or maybe because of all of that, voters are increasingly coming to their own judgments about who is electable and who is not. After all, these people in the media, they've literally been wrong about everything. Everything in 2016, everything about Trump impeachment, everything in the 2020 primary. If they'd been correct, Kamala and Beto would be battling it out for supremacy in New Hampshire right now, and Bernie Sanders would have dropped out months ago. Kirsten Gillibrand would probably be hanging in at a plucky third on a wave of white feminist pussy hat power. So maybe at a certain point voters go, well, if those guys think Bernie is the worst choice, he must actually be the best choice we can make. Or maybe they're just sick and tired of getting screwed over by health insurers and big pharma and are pretty sure their friends and neighbors feel the same. Sagar, I think it's a real kind of watershed moment to see that shift in dynamic, because Bernie has always been the most trusted on the issues, but people were worried, rightfully so, after years and years of having this propaganda that you can't be a socialist and win, that he was not electable. And so to see this shift, at least in New Hampshire, I think is a really significant development in the race.
It's a huge development. I mean, there's all the caveats, right? Oh, he's got this. He's, home state advantage.
Yeah, it's just New Hampshire.
Oh, just New Hampshire, neighboring senator, whatever. Still, interesting data points. The electability thing is very important because that is the one that matters en masse to Democratic voters.
Yeah.
It's the definition of electability itself which is really up for grabs. The main challenge for Sanders that I really want to look to is the low turnout in Iowa. And his campaign is laser focused on that because they know that was a big problem for them. Now, we're going to see what the turnout number is in New Hampshire, but I've actually seen some speculation, and this is something that I think the Sanders team should break away from, that the vote blue no matter who mentality is suppressing turnout. Because people are thinking, I'm going to vote for whoever the nominee is, so I don't need to go out there and vote. That's actually a very dismissive attitude for a lot of people, and it's making it so that they're like, oh, I'll just vote for whoever the standard bearer is, whenever the actual war is over what that standard is going to be against Trump. So I'm fascinated actually to see the Sanders response to that, because he keeps going out there. I think he was pressed by Chuck Todd on NBC News over the weekend. He's like, will you even campaign for Michael Bloomberg? He's like, yeah, sure. But I'm like, I'm not sure he should be saying things like that. That's interesting. That has actually made it so that you remove the agency of choice to people who might be on the fence for actually voting for you.
Well, in that department, I mean, first of all, he did increase turnout among young people, which is an encouraging sign, and among people of color, which is also encouraging sign, working class people of color. But I think the point is well taken. I would say that the new rhetoric around Pete Buttigieg, which is like, whose side are you on? right? Are you
Yeah,
with
that's
the
good.
billionaires
Right.
or are you with the people? I think that is actually a very useful framing, not only for Pete, but if Biden makes the comeback, which doesn't look entirely likely right now, but you never know. You don't want to write these people off because we don't know how black voters are going to ultimately vote once we get to the South, past New Hampshire. And also very good framing against Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, and that was the thing is with Trump is he didn't actually pledge to back whoever the nominee was. So his people had to come out and be like, we have to make sure that he wins. I feel like Sanders is actually almost undercutting maybe, I mean, who knows how many voters who actually might be like, Bernie will probably win. I'll come out no matter who could win for him. I think it's interesting, especially the way he's handling Buttigieg and Biden, especially Buttigieg, is making that dynamic, really stark contrast on who can win and who can't, and that is always the place that you want to be. And it seems like New Hampshire is on his side. I can't wait to see what the national electability numbers say.
I know. We haven't seen any national polls. We haven't seen a Nevada poll in forever. It's killing me.
It's chronically underpolled, and it's really bad.
Indeed. All right, Sagar, looking forward to your radar. That's next.